What is the first of the Ten Commandments? Might seem like an odd question, but it's not. Jews and Christians give different answers.
Okay, so just to correct something that I said in the introduction, Dennis Prager is not Christian, he's actually Jewish.
The reason is that what we know as the Ten Commandments is, in the original Hebrew, the 10 statements. And since the Hebrew is the original, we begin with the first statement, which all religions agree is, I am the Lord your God, who took you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. This statement is so important that none of the other commandments make sense without it. First, it asserts that God is giving these commandments, not Moses and not any other human being.
Okay, but it still makes sense to not murder people and steal things, no matter who's telling you not to do it.
Second, God is the one who delivered you from slavery. Again, no human being did this, not even Moses. Therefore, you have an obligation to me, God.
Okay, firstly, God didn't take everyone out of slavery. Even within the narrative of the Bible, it was just the Hebrews. So, by that logic, it would mean that it's just the Hebrews that have to obey and worship God. And secondly, it makes no sense that if someone takes you out of slavery, you have to be a slave to that person.
And what is that obligation? That you live by the following 9 commandments. This is the beginning of what is known as ethical monotheism, the greatest world-changing innovation of the Hebrew Bible. It means 2 things. Ethical monotheism means that the one God, that's monotheism, is the source of ethics, of morality. Morality, an objective code of right and wrong, does not emanate from human opinion. It emanates from God and therefore transcends human opinion.
Yeah, well, that's just like your opinion, man.
Morality cannot be objective. Just even if God exists and God has an opinion on moral issues, that doesn't mean that God's opinion is objectively true.
The other meaning of ethical monotheism is that what God most wants from us is that we treat other human beings morally. None of the 10 commandments concern what humans must do, quote unquote, for God.
Bullshit.
Okay, I'm not going to get into that right now, but he's going to go through the other commandments and I'll explain why I put that clip there.
Pre-10 Commandments religions all believe that people must do a lot for their gods. For example, feed them and even sacrifice people to them. But now, thanks to the 10 Commandments, mankind learned that what God wants is that we be good to our fellow human beings.
Or we could just cut out the middleman and not sacrifice people and animals and not kill people for not following these arbitrary rules, and instead just treat people well because that's mutually beneficial.
Even the commandments concerning not having false gods and not carrying God's name in vain are ultimately about morality.
Bullshit.
The thing we can do for God is to treat all his other children decently.
But again, why are we doing that for God rather than for each other?
Every parent can relate to this. Parents, or at least healthy parents, have indescribable joy when they see their children act lovingly toward one another, and indescribable pain when they see their children hurt one another. So too God, who is likened to our Father in heaven, cares most about how we treat other human beings, all of whom are his children. The third critical teaching of the first statement, I am the Lord your God who took you out of Egypt, out of the house of bondage, is the importance and the meaning of freedom.
And then that freedom is taken away in the other commandments, especially the God-based ones. What that sounds like to me is a guilt trip for Hebrews.
Note that God is not saying in this introduction to the 10 Commandments that he created the world. It surely would have made a lot of sense for God to introduce the 10 Commandments with the statement, I am the Lord your God who created the world. That is, after all, pretty impressive and would make sense. I created the world, you better listen to me.
Yeah, but why would that make sense? If this is anything more than a case of might makes right, then someone please tell me.
But no. The one thing God declares is that he took the children of Israel out of slavery and into freedom. That's how much God hates slavery.
Well, first of all, the Hebrews were never actually slaves in Egypt. And secondly, even if they were, God only took one group of people out of slavery once after they had already been there for 400 years. So that means that God is only slightly annoyed by slavery when it happens to people that he likes.
And how important God considers freedom. The founders of America based their entire view of America on this belief that God wants us to be free.
Yeah, but then they kept slaves for about 100 years after that. And also, no, it wasn't anything, it didn't have anything to do with God wanting people to be free. It was just people wanting to be free.
That is why the most iconic symbol of the American Revolution, the Liberty Bell, has only one sentence inscribed on it, a verse from the Hebrew Bible, "Proclaim liberty throughout all the land unto all the inhabitants thereof."
Yeah, but the Liberty Bell is not the American Constitution, and if they wanted to make America a theocracy, they could have very easily done that.
But there is one other equally important lesson about freedom imparted by the opening statement of the Ten Commandments: what freedom means. The giver of the Ten Commandments is in effect saying, I took you out of slavery and into freedom, and these 10 Commandments are the way to make a free society.
Except that every society that has signed the Ten Commandments into law has not been a free society. So he's there enjoying the freedoms of a secular, modern country and talking about how people shouldn't have those freedoms.
You cannot be a free people if you do whatever you want.
And here he sets up a false dichotomy between following the Ten Commandments and absolute anarchy. And the thing is, there's a very clear third option, which is the option that, again, he's living in right now, which is secular laws.
Freedom comes from moral self-control. There is no other way to achieve it.
Except that we can't expect all people to control themselves all the time. That's why we have police and prisons and things like that.
And fourth and finally, by telling us that he liberated the Hebrew slaves, God made clear that he cares deeply about human beings.
That would be fine if God didn't commit a mass infanticide while freeing the Hebrews, and if God didn't commit genocide in the Bible and command murders and genocides in the Bible. And also, and again, if God cared about slavery the way that he did about the Hebrews after they had already been in slavery for 4 centuries, then he would intervene every time someone is enslaved. But obviously that doesn't happen, so either God is only mildly annoyed by slavery when it happens to the people that he likes, or there is no God and we're just doing what we can do to each other.
It is impressive to create the world, but what most matters is not only that there is a creator, but that the creator cares about his creation. All of that is in the one statement with which the Ten Commandments begins. I'm Dennis Prager.
And I'm Kobe Gittery. And please like, share, subscribe, do whatever you want to do. Thanks for watching.